Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
Hello, people and others. Welcome to Werewolf the Podcast, and I hope you're in a howling good mood. Today, your challenge is, if you want to accept it, is to find how many Bruce Lee quotes we've stuffed in this thing. Share us, follow us, and go to the description for more information. Thanks for listening, and good luck.
Brave man sent today. Yes, we're on our way to fight the mighty worm of Perigoo. Gervais and William, and then God's chosen son, the mighty Lord of Northumberland.
Dragons are real. Or were real. Yes, you heard me correctly. They exist, or at least they existed. Time in this case is a fickle thing, so I can only talk for the now that I am in. Hopefully you have heard and understood this savage truth from the earlier episodes of this story that I have narrated. If not, they are more than worthy of your attention. Dragons are real, and they do exist. Now, with that knowledge, I can continue with my account and the difficulties that we, the precious few, were finding in dealing with the dragon. At this point, I will tell you about our small group of characters who inhabit this tale. William Marshal. Yes, I. A knight and a werewolf. Gervais de Montagne is a knight and braver than any man I have ever known. He is not the most pious of characters, true enough, being fond of wine and women, but he is always full of fight. Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland, a knight. Unintentionally brave and also not a devout man, fond of wine and women too, and a great minstrel of his time. Llewellyn the Bold, known as Welly, my squire, not quick of wit in comparison with most, but solid and stoic and often surprising in mindfulness. Fenrir, the most consequential of characters. An angel wolf soul only seen by me and a select few others with gifts beyond my understanding. He is a great advisor and allows me to become the giant wolf or wolfman at will. A most useful friend he is. A quick recap. We had journeyed south at the request of my lord de Tonqueville to speak with the Count of Perigord, who believed he had a worm problem. Obviously, this was nonsense. A dragon had not been heard of or seen since St. George had dealt with his. So we, on our wasted journey, laughed and jested at this inconceivable thing we did. 3 brave knights going south to fight a monster that did not exist. At least we may battle brigands and see the country as we pass. We would get to sample the libations of a new court on our arrival there, even if it was run by a man who thought that a dragon wanted to eat his daughter. But we were wrong. Oh, how we were wrong. But, quoting a great man, mistakes are always forgivable if one has the courage to admit them. The worm did exist. It was real, and probably the realest thing that I had ever seen. It was a giant, a creature as long as a boat in the sea and winged to fly, with 4 legs ending in rending claws, and a maw full of tooth-filled jaws. It is not a worthy description of such a beast, but most of you know of these beasts when I speak of them, so, in your mind's eye, it must be a worthy description of what I am trying to describe. We had initially tried a plan to catch it like a fisherman does. Bait was a bull, hook an anchor, and line was a chain. It had worked. To a point. It had taken the bait without us seeing it. Then, swallowing the bull, it chased my brave friends as they ran away. I know, it doesn't sound brave to run, but the fact that they could even move under that level of fear was bravery at its most obvious, you must believe me. The hook had stuck sure in the gut of the dragon. We had it caught. No, we had only angered the beast with our action. It turned on me and meant me violence. In an act of total madness, I threw myself at the beast's head, sword drawn, and I had stabbed the steel point of my weapon directly between its eyes. A killing blow, by God, given by the use of all my force and all the force gifted by my wolf soul, the angels, and that God himself could bestow. This dragon was surely done. But no, not done. This dragon was enraged. Well, possibly enraged. If not that, then perhaps I had at least annoyed it with my attack. Annoyed that I had chipped one of its beautiful scales and had the audacity to attempt to wound it. As somewhat of an anticlimax, it had vomited the baited hook and left for its home in disgust. Oh, how Lucifer and her minions must have laughed at this. And at us. Following such a failure, we sat for a day, a little despondent about our defeat, and we tried to consider our following action. But, as a brave man once said, defeat is not defeat, unless accepted as a reality in your own mind. The sensible choice would be to travel back north and pretend we'd never been present at the noble Count's court. We were nothing to such a thing. Nothing that could hurt it. We were annoying gnats that irritated it, nothing more, dead at a swipe from those terrible claws. Instead of being sensible, we tried to devise a plan to take the beast's head. But as some great man told us, not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. We had failed. But 13-year-old Welly had devised a cunning plan of his own, so we decided to do it. A wise man once said, "If you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done." To remember, if you love life, don't waste time, for time is what life is made up of. So I stand here with 2 other palfrey horses at the entrance of the cave. The other horses show fear at me. It is understandable, it is, as I am my wolf form by them. They are tethered, so they are forced to hold this spot. We are bait for the wyrm. I wear a palfrey skin hide over myself to act as camouflage for what we attempt. We wait for the wyrm to come snatch me. Once snatched, then... well, we will see, I suppose. The key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering. It had seemed quite a simple and straightforward act for St. George. He had given the sign of the cross and charged his wyrm with his lance and injured it. The next victim of his wyrm was a princess. He had taken her girdle and tethered the beast with it. This girdle made the creature meek, and it could be led anywhere without a fight. On taking the animal to the city of Selene, the populace became terrified. so George offered to kill the monster on the price of the 15,000 non-believers being baptized there under Christ. Unfortunately, we did not have any non-believers to help us, but we believed that God was on our side because we thought this seemed like the sort of work he would appreciate. We could have done with some more detail in George's story and the Count's daughter's girdle. For example, where had the lance taken the wyrm? As far as we could see, the wyrm's body was mightily armoured against any injury. A spear or lance ridden at full pace would have been turned by that wall of impenetrable scales. Also, having met the daughter of the Count, and even the fact that she was a robust child, well fed and watered, her girdle would certainly not have been large enough for this behemoth's neck. These foolish follies were my thoughts, as the horses around me suddenly became disturbed at something. Panic grew in them, and they dragged their ties and struggled with their hobbles. A great shadow covered the moon, and the beast beside me was gone. A blast of red rain came with the crash of jaws. The squeal of the taken horse was cut short, and a fountain of blood gouted into the night. Within a moment, the other horse was gone. Just gone. Nothing remained of it. And then my world went dark.
It is I, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland. I, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland, noble of birth, bane of fathers and husbands of the court, strong of calf and keen of sight, was on the third watch at the mouth of the beast's lair. Of course, I took this last stint in the early hours when the fright is most felt in the hearts of mere men. It takes a mighty man such as I, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland, to take this watch, as I know no fear, and as I like to say, real living is living for others. Such a devout man I am. I, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland, wished to come to blows with the mighty wyrm, which was taking the daughters of the noble classes in this land. This was damn unallowable. Sorry for the language. This was so unallowable. I was the only sly creature that should be taking these noble women, forsooth. What a waste to consume such pure flesh and leave naught for me. I, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland, had offered to go into the cave and duel the dragon. But this had been an unwanted notion, as my fellows in my retinue knew that if I was lost, they would be lost too. As if I could or would lose. But accepting their protestations, I stood down from battle, against my own wishes. Who could blame them? They knew that battle would turn the tide either way, and I, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland, being the boldest, the bravest, and the best of my fellows here, felt their fear. So I accepted this with great pain and much difficulty in my heart. Oh, don't get me wrong, my fellows did not envy me, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland, or my bravery. Oh no, they offered love and loyalty and fealty to Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland, being willing to die for me if needed. As you can surmise, I must have been incredibly brave. I must be incredibly brave in order to be followed by such men as these. Now, I continue to describe this evening's plight. I was bravely lying on my stomach under much brush to hide me from the beast. I know, it does not sound so brave to be hidden, but it was not out of fear of being butchered by the beast, but because the dragon and I had already crossed horns that day, and I knew that it would not show itself if it knew that I, Sir Percy, Duke of Northumberland, was present. I had caused it fear to show itself. So I bravely hid like the hunter in the hide for our sakes, so that the thing would enter the field. As I watched, I woke. I wasn't asleep. I became keenly aware of the palfrey horses whinnying in distress. They seemed to be somewhat perturbed by something that would have sent ice down the spine of an average man, but not I, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland. I started to shiver like those men, but not with fear or cold, but with desperation to be where my trusty second William Marshal was at this moment. Under his horsey hide, ready to be taken, prepared to be taken into the monster's body, and then to tear and rend his way out, breaching those incredible, indefatigable defences from within. Brave William. Brave William. God had sent him to aid me. A man capable of becoming a ravening beast at will. Oh, how God had blessed me to have him foremost in my retinue. Oh, I could see nothing, but then it was there. The monster, God damn its eyes, its head was gigantic and snake-like. Alone, its head must have been larger than any creature had the right to be. It was the size of a large cart, the type that would bring the barrels to my home in Northumberland before St. Stephen's feast. Its teeth were as long as my arms and sharp beyond sharp, I could tell. Its eyes were deep red, like cut rubies. If I could take them as a prize for this night's work, I would. Remember, the possession of anything begins in the mind. Now, against my will, I had to wake my other companions and prepare them for the fight that they did not want. I shuffled back to the place they were hidden and resting. They slept sound, a sound sleep of those who knew they were being safely watched over by one such as me, Lord Percy, Duke of Northumberland. I smiled beneficently down at them. They were slumbering, content in the knowledge that I would be there in the night, watching and waiting, blade ready to flash to quell any threat that may harm them. I swiftly woke Gervais, shaking him back to some kind of life. Gervais! He growled at this lack of want to wake, so I slapped him across the face, and this made those eyes, those icy blue eyes, open and show anger, as his hand with some instinct reached for the hilt of his blade.
It better be worthy news that you tend me with a slap, Percy.
He voiced. Oh, how he jested. The dragon has taken William, and alas, I saw great volumes of blood come from forth between those jaws. At the close, I think he is dead.
Let us quickly leave this sight and readiness a new plan.
I bravely told the knight. Said Gervais. He stood and stretched and then kicked Welly awake with, in no gentle way, to be honest. The boy farted loudly before standing and looked through bleary eyes at the two of us with some level of expectation. The dragon has taken Will, Welly, and judging from its reaction, we will ne'er see our brave friend again, I told the boy, my eyes failing and filling with grief.
Percy, don't start that shit again,
somewhat rudely said Gervais.
We grieve when we know. Show me this bloody worm.
I carefully crawled my way back on my belly, hiding from the creature so as not to cause it fear or fright so that it would leave. Gervais and Welly, they just walked behind me. They must not have realized the danger they were raising by doing this. We got to the secluded spot where I had watched the beast. Gervais knelt and looked. Welly scratched his head, yawned silently and looked. There it was not.
Gervais, I was taken from a pleasant dream by Percy's panicking face. The face in my dreams had no right to be replaced by such a face as his.
She was a beauty. He was boorish. I was not caught up in the moment yet, as the lips of my lover had just been stolen involuntarily from me. I did not want to leave her as we played friskily on the bed at her husband's castle, so I decided to turn my head from the disturbance and resume my dream. What could be more important to me at this time than, well, this? My lover, in the vision, slapped me, and I woke properly to the face of Percy, and I reached for my sword out of instinct. It better be worthy news that you tend me with a slap for, Percy, I angrily told the man. The dragon has taken William, and I'm so Gregory is to go and pray for this Johnson is close. I think he's dead. Let us quickly leave this side and redress this new plan. I prodded the boy asleep at my feet to wake him. He farted and turned to us with bleary eyes full of question. Fresh drool ran down his cheek. It was not a pretty sight for anyone. Percy had now turned to the boy. The dragon has taken Will, and judging from his reaction, we will not see our brave friend again. Oh, don't start that nonsense again, I warned Percy. We grieve when we know. Show me the worm, I told him. If anyone could survive the worm's jaws, then it would be William. I had seen him survive things that no man should. Yet I know he was no man. Percy dragged himself on the floor like a worm to the spotting site of the dragon. Welly and I wandered with curiosity behind him, wiping sleep from our eyes and getting used to the chill dampness of the early morning. Once at our viewpoint of the cave mouth, we knelt to behold what was there. There was nothing. Then there it was. We stepped back as it appeared from the mouth of the cave. The creature threw itself around as though in agony, smashing itself against cliffs that surrounded the cave mouth. Rocks the size of houses were struck free by its uncontrollable movements. It paused for a moment and started ripping at its neck with claws that tore away scales and flesh. It was as if the beast had gone mad. Blood flew, and then we observed with intrigue to see what would happen. What is it doing?
Percy asked whilst laying face down on the floor. I smiled. It is doing nothing, but I have a feeling that something is stuck in its throat. I laughed, knowing what caused the dragon its poor distress. I think that is our William, Percy, I told Percy, pushing him with a toe. Be like water, William, I bellowed. Then you cannot be chewed. This scene was incredible to view. The dragon beat its head on the floor and walls. It tried to flame, but none of the burning venom left its throat. It was difficult to tell, but as far as the animal like that can show us, it looked like it was in sheer agony. This was good. But I did start to feel a little empathy for the animal's pain. It was distressed and in somewhat of a panic. I wanted it to die, but this was not a worthy death for such a magnificent creature. And then the beast just collapsed to the ground, convulsing. It still breathed, and I could see its massive chest heave, but it was dying before us. I should assume it would take a long time for that creature that big to die. It would take time for the body far from the head to realize it was dead. I sadly admit that when it did die, I was extremely joyful. Looking back, it was a sad and cruel death, but in the moments, the relief given by its death was enormous. I was happy, but not satisfied. Welly and I got out to our feet and cheered in celebration. Hurrah! Percy was still lying prone on the floor, his head in his hands, as though hiding from what was happening. So I grabbed his shoulder and gave him a gentle shake. Percy, the beast is down, I told him. His eyes met mine, and he saw my smile. With the small amount of grace he still had, he managed to get to his feet and cheered. Hurrah! Time had passed. The monster's ribs had stopped moving. It was dead. We had moved closer to see it in all its glory. It was not invisible at this point, not when dead, but still, well, it was noble and beautiful to see. We waited. We waited for Will to appear, because he would, safe and sound from the body as we knew he would. He had to, but naught happened. I started to get somewhat worried and somewhat anxious for him. This was not how it was supposed to go. It wasn't how it was supposed to end. William was supposed to step from the corpse and join us in celebration of the beast's death. Eventually, it had been too long, and I shouted for Welly to come with me to the jaws of the beast. This was where our friend went in. If we could open these jaws, then could we get him out? The creature was still, but still warm. We were sure it was dead, but being able to see those red eyes was frightening. They were not normal eyes as such, and they held no life or death. Normally, eyes tell you if something is dead. These red ones held no clue. I reached with great care for the fetid jaws. The stench was acrid. Bits of rotting material were trapped between those teeth. I saw a helmet of some past knight, with the knight's, his head still trapped in the container. I tried to prise those prison-like jaws open. They were far too heavy for a mere man. I stood on the lower jaw and got a good grip on the upper jaw and tried again with all my might to open them. They did not move. I took my blade and started to hack at the thing's neck to try and remove that gigantic serpentine neck, somewhat like St. George had done himself. After 10 of my mightiest strikes, I had only scratched those thickened scales, and I had to sit down exhausted in my efforts and in a quandary mentally. Then I heard it, the ripping of flesh muffled, but there, slowly, the flesh of the neck started to pulse as something fought to escape. I restarted my slicing at this point. Whatever was trying to get out, I would help in the hope that it was my friend. The flesh tore, and another beast-style head showed itself, that of the werewolf, as it ripped the skin and stepped from the fleshy portal that it had created. The products of the dragon's gut matted and fouled its fur. It struggled, so Welly and I leapt to its aid, trying to widen the hole and make way for its wolfen form. Eventually, the werewolf fell from the rent we created and lay on the floor, desperate for breath. It was covered in the ooze of the beast, the saliva, and, must say, worse. We stood over the werewolf as its breathing slowed and it relaxed. It rolled to its back and slowly started to retake its human form. William was with us again, and yet again naked, and, of course, once again lying in a puddle of indescribable goo. Now we cheered and clapped. Welly danced a little jig as Percy helped William to his feet and took him to his arms. "I knew we'd manage to get you out of there, William. Just a little bit of help you required," he told the man.
Thanks, Percy.
I have to admit a minor annoyance at the taking of the glory from Percy, but I would let it be as usual. We had much to celebrate. "William," I called. The man turned to me, a smile across his features as he opened his arms to give me a congratulatory hug. Welly's eyes flashed from William to then something else, the features on his face changing from joy to terror. I had not noticed it. The worm moved with sudden and unbelievable speed. It took William by the left arm and shoulder, lifting him into the air and worrying like a terrier on a rat. William's body was wrenched and then thrown to a distance from the monster to the left. His limb was still in the beast's mouth. As William's body disappeared into the bush, the dragon froze. It gazed at us and fell with a thump. Silence and stillness as we all stared at the beast. Was it now dead? At first, none of us dared check. We just stared. We'd gone from joy, and then the worst had happened. What do we do? We had won. What now? I turned, but could not see William. I did not want to see William. I had seen him
literally torn into bits. He had to be. He was. Then a voice recognised by us all, although strained, shouted out, "It was William. He lived. How?"
It's naught but a flesh wound, my friends. I'm fine, it's a bloody flesh wound.
Madness, but he lived.
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.